Okay, so transmission's in. It's bolted to the Crossmember. Wipe off the lens here. So it's bolted to the Crossmember, measured it 1,000,000 times. So it's straight in that hole. I think that hole's gonna line up. If not, I'll hone it out a little bit, it's no big deal. Measured the Crossmember to the frame a whole bunch of times to make sure that that was centered. Everything should be nice and centered on that transmission there. It's all sucked up tight with the lock washers on the bell housing there. Everything's snugged up on the transmission mount, left and right, all snugged up on the sides there. So I'm gonna take my strap off here, release everything, because we're now held in there and that transmission hopefully is not coming back out. So we're in there. This is the clearance up there sitting on the Crossmember. So it looks like I've got, you know, maybe 1.5 inches between the tunnel and shifter, but if I've got a shifter that's gonna make up for that. So hopefully this sticks above the floor, then that means my hole in the floor is good and I don't need to modify it anymore. So trans Crossmember's in. Take some measurements for my yoke to my rear end so I can get a drive shaft made up. But that looks pretty damn good right there. Hook up my speedometer, put a new starter in it. That was another thing, is that you have to get a different starter. The original one that came out was an 11.5-inch flex plate. And the new one is a 14-inch flywheel. So they do not interchange. You can see the bolt pattern straight across on that one. This one's staggered. So I had to get a new bolt kit as well. Make sure you get the proper bolts for those. So that guy's not going back in. This one is. That's the proper starter for like a 70s Camaro, is what I told them at Lordco. So this one should work fine. Hopefully I don't need to shim it, but we'll throw that up in there. I'll throw my cover on there eventually as well. I'll throw my rubber boot on the side of the transmission where those hydraulic lines come out, so those will sit in those there. Once I'm done bleeding that, there's the fluid for the trans. There's the syringe for bleeding the clutch system. So we're getting down to the last kind of steps, which is nice. See this thing actually take shape. So it's in. I'll drop this thing down and see what we can do with the floor there. Okay, so transmission's in. Got the Speedo cable hooked up, a couple of little things hooked up, but gonna get this shaft, or just got the shaft measured up so I can get the drive shaft in the works to get made up. But the hydraulic line to the slave is hooked up. That's the drain for that, or the bleeder rather. So I'm gonna bleed from there in a bit, but just wanted to show you how I measured this drive shaft. So you have to measure center of the yoke, which is right on the edge there, or center of the U-joint, center there, to center of this guy. So you want to have your yoke pulled out about 3/4 of an inch. Luckily there's already kind of a line on this where 3/4 of an inch sits. So what I did is right there, 3/4 of an inch out of your shaft, or out of your tail of your transmission. So that's where that's going to sit when the drive shaft is welded up. So what I did is measure from the center of this to the center of this. But you have to let the car down so it's not hanging, so the suspension is loaded. So I took it down off the hoist, crawled under the car, and measured center to center. And that came out to 50 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to get the drive shaft made up with that. So this yoke, got to take this to the machine shop along with the old drive shaft, which is this guy. Just mark the length on it. So they're going to cut that off weld that on, balance it, cut it to size, and we'll have a new drive shaft. So that's good to go. Once that shaft's back in, throw that together, bleed that clutch, drop this thing down, get working on that floor up there, make sure that fits with the shifter. All right, so got the car down off the hoist. Gonna get a view at how I did cutting through the tunnel. So as you can see, we're pretty well lined up. I'm gonna need to modify it a little bit. This is looking kind of directly over it. So this shifter is gonna stick up through the tunnel a little bit. But as you can see, this top piece is a little wider than that hole that I drilled. So I think I'm gonna have to take a little bit off the edge here just to make sure I can get down there, and just so there's a little bit of play. Obviously, as that transmission and engine cranks or is under power, it's gonna flex a little bit left and right. So I wanna make sure I'm not gonna hit that tunnel. So gonna probably cut this out just a little hair on this side here with a grinder, clean that up, buzz it, and then after that I'm gonna go ahead and rip the back of this carpet out, but I've got sound deadener, so I'm gonna insulate the entire car here. Steering column can go back in, bleed the brakes. I'm gonna eliminate the neutral safety. I'm just gonna connect that full time, so there's not going to be a clutch safety or a neutral safety on this car. And then one of those lines I'm just going to hook to the reverse light switch down below. But anyways, this, I'm just going to modify this so this can get screwed back together, or this shifter can go back in, and then from there I can do all the sound deadening in here. I'm pretty damn close, but just a little bit of modifying that tunnel a little bit, and then this guy can get back in there. So that's where we're at in here. Okay, so just marked off a perfect square in that tunnel under the size of what my grommet shift boot is going to be, so I still have material to screw into. So I'm just going to take the grinder, buzz that square there. That'll give me lots of room for my shifter to go back in, then lots of room for that to move around. So I'm going to buzz that out, and then I'm going to clean this floor all up and get this all sound deadened. Just ordered some stuff off of Amazon there. So I'm going to sound deaden all that in, get that shifter back in, and then once that deadening's all in, shifter's in place, then I can pretty much roll onto the carpet kit. So just going to buzz this next, grind this all nice, make sure that that's good to go. Sand the edges down, make it all clean so there's nothing sharp there, and so there's some movement for that shifter, and then can blast that shifter in. Just taped up that shifter so nothing falls in there as well. So